Hello. Well, good evening, I guess, because we actually know what time of day it is. Good evening, and welcome to Beware of Spoiler. Wow, 30-minute reviews. I'm Adam. See, only doing this once a week is fucking me up. Um, so today, what we're here to talk about is Akira. We're gonna touch a little bit on Akira, which I did finally get around to watching for the first time ever in this driving rain that we have right now. So I apologize if you hear that. Um, but I've now finally watched Akira after years of wanting to. I saw it on Hulu. But before we talk about that, let's talk about what was the other one? Um, what we're here to talk about before we get into that really is Pokemon. If you've listened to this show before, you know that is a topic of conversation that I do enjoy bringing up. And today we got news of a new Pokemon Direct, or Pokemon Presents, as I call them. It's a Nintendo Direct, but very specifically for Pokemon. And we speculated about this back when the last Nintendo Direct happened last month. We said that, or was it early this month? I think it was early this month. When that Nintendo Direct happened, we were speculating that there's a possibility that we would have Pokemon Presents around Pokemon Day, which is next Monday, February 27th. And we speculated that was possibly why we didn't get any Pokemon games announced as part of the the Switch Online and Switch Online expansion. Um, so let's speculate now, baselessly, about what we think is going to be in this announcement. Um, First and foremost, I think guaranteed we get DLC announcement for Sword and Shield. Guaranteed we're going to have an announcement as to when the first round of DLC will come out. And I think they're going to follow a similar release cadence as Sword and Shield, where I think we're going to have two major DLC releases. Um, I think it's possible that what they do is they have one major release this year, one major release next year, with two smaller ones in between for a total of four. I think they're going to want to do, two a year. That'll keep them in tune with what's going on. It would be surprising if they didn't announce DLC tomorrow. I think that's the big thing, is that it's basically a guarantee that we're going to get a DLC, or not tomorrow, next week. I think it's basically guaranteed we get a DLC announcement. Um, we're still waiting for information about Pokemon Bank, or not Pokemon Bank. It's now Pokemon Home, and compatibility with Scarlet and Violet. I don't think that's coming. I think that's coming in the spring, and I don't think that's necessarily something that they're going to give a date for. If they do mention it, it'll be like, by the way, we are still working on this, and we are still committed to a spring release date, but we will announce that as it gets closer. Um, I think that if there is anything, I think there's definitely a Mystery Dungeon game coming because Chunsoft um, is involved in this presentation that came out last week, and Chunsoft is the development company that makes the Mystery Dungeon games. Whether this is Blue Rescue Team DX, which was fantastic, where they're going to just take Blue Rescue Team, or Explorers of Time or Explorers of Darkness, or Explorers of the Sky, whatever it was called, the third version. If they take that and do a DX of that and release that for the Switch, or they do an entirely new Mystery Dungeon game, in which case, either way, I'm I'm committed to playing that game if it comes out. Hopefully, if they announce it now, hopefully by March or April we get that. I can't, I don't think. Well, I mean, looking at other, spin-off games like Snap was announced at Pokemon Presents, and then that was out in like May, June. I think they announced in 2019 or in 2020. I think they also announced Mystery Dungeon at that same one, and that came out in like March. But either way, that is, they've likely been working on it for a long time, so they can put it out quickly. Especially considering that now Sunsoft hasn't had a Mystery Dungeon game in 3 years, because the last one would have been Blue Rescue Team DX. Um, which again, if you haven't played that game, go check it out. It's really fun, and the art style is really endearing. Um, Hopefully that's it. Hopefully that's what we're getting in terms of that. I mean, I would also be very interested if they did a new Pokemon Ranger. Um, I do love the idea of having another Pokemon Ranger game. Those games were really fun on the DS. Hopefully that's something that's coming. And if they're going to port another, of the spin offs or another Trozy. Trozy was another one that was fun. Um, in terms of Game Boy and Game Boy Advance, I think that we may get day of, um, what was it, pinball, and I would say almost certainly we're going to have trading card game, but also the possibility of red, blue, yellow, because we do have the impending release of Stadium and Stadium 2 on the N64. I would be surprised to a great degree if they didn't have that working with it. Um, I think in terms of other games, I think the smart thing to do would be to have red, blue, yellow be in the what's it called in the I think obviously red, blue, and yellow coming day of would be the smartest thing. I think that it's also likely that they're going to announce a date for red, blue, and yellow to come. And granted, it shouldn't be that much more difficult to do because they already have the infrastructure in place for it, considering that red, blue, and yellow were on the 3DS and the 3DS is closing. So I could see that being something. And the same thing goes for Gold, Silver, Crystal. Um, Considering it's been 2 years since there was a remake, I think that it's a possibility that we get DLC at the end of this year. I could see them also doing another remake. I don't know if it was a different studio that worked on Let's Go, but maybe they announced a Let's Go game. Because look, if they're selling DLC, they're going to sell a season pass, and that they're going to get a lot of sales of early on, even if they sell it at the $35 mark, or if they wait and do it at a full 60. Either way, that's a question. Like that's something that could be coming. But if they want to sell another whole game, they could do Let's Go Togepi Marl, Let's Go whatever you want to call it for Gold, Silver, Crystal. Um, Either way, like you could do that coming the end of this year, and have that be something else that could come. Or they could do another re-release the same way they did um, Diamond Pearl Platinum with Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, where they outsourced it to another studio. If that's the case, if that studio is working on another Pokemon game, that could put them at this holiday releasing Darkest Black, Whitest Light, Let No Evil Escape My Sight Pokemon Edition. Um, it is possible that that comes. So these are all things that could happen. I think it's I think if there's anything that's kind of a guarantee, I think it's concrete stuff for the virtual console, or as we call it now, Switch Online expansion. I think we get concrete dates for that stuff, and I think we get information about the DLC. Maybe not concrete dates, but we get information and the first trailer for the DLC. I also wouldn't be surprised if we got information regarding a new Detective Pikachu movie, because it was not that long ago that we got confirmation that movie was still happening. The Detective Pikachu sequel. We also know that Pokemon's been developing something with Netflix. So with these things still working, or it was a live action project with Netflix too, and possibly a first trailer for the new show, or like a first little teaser for the new show, because that's the thing is Pokemon is not just you know a small a small organization that just makes video games. It is wide reaching in what it does. And I think that there's a lot that can be played with here. Um, but yeah, I think that's we'll see on Monday, Tuesday, or maybe late Monday, maybe Tuesday. We'll have a reaction of what was announced. You can find that right here. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about what it could mean and what we are looking forward to going forward with this. And if we're disappointed in anything not being announced, what it could be. Because I really just hyped myself up on a remake of Pokemon Ranger that is probably not going to happen. Um, that game is severely underrated. But let's talk a little bit about Akira, which is our topic of conversation for the day. Now, Akira, for those of you who don't know, is a 1988 anime movie. It's a cyberpunk anime. And I watched it last night for the first time. You may be saying that's a little weird that you've never seen it before. Up until recently, my relationship with anime kind of began and ended with Dragon Ball Z. I had seen a few episodes of Naruto. I tried to get into Bleach. Couldn't really get past it. I had someone tell me, oh, no, you have to get past the first 100 episodes, in which case, I'm like, fuck all the way off with that. I might give it another shot, but, who knows. I got a pretty busy slate right now of other stuff before I start trying to dive into a new show. Now, for the record, I watched the dub because I again have other things to do at the same time. So I watched the dub, not the sub, which we'll get into that at some point where there is a difference. And personally, I think that watching a sub is better. 9 times out of 10. I think that if you watch the dubbed version, you're gonna not get an exact translation. But in either case, you're not getting an exact translation. Um, but the voices are not always designed the same way as they would have been in the what's it called in the original. I'm tired. It's been a very long day today, at work and all of that. But yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be as ultra violent as it was, and not that that's a bad thing. But I was just it kind of caught me off guard because of how much of it has been like everyone at this point has seen the Akira bike slide. So like with it being as well known as that, I was like, oh, this is probably something that's more like kid friendly, and oh no, it's not. Because like when I think of like anime movies that have made the mainstream, I think a lot of Studio Ghibli movies, which those I've seen quite a few of. Um, and those are some of them may have more adult themes and more adult undertones, but they are viewable by children. You can watch that movie if you have a kid, and they're not going to, and it's not going to be a problem. This is not a kids movie, and I was not expecting it to be the way it was. Not that that's bad. I enjoyed it very much, and it's one of those things where it's like it very weirdly pairs with The Last of Us nicely, in a very weird way. It also is reasonably topical, and it blends well with the whole, the conversation we've been having over the last few years about police brutality and how entwined the military and police are, and all of that. And I think that like this is a movie that has value even to this day, as depressing as that may be, considering the movie came out in 1988. Um, it was oddly prescient, which is depressing. And I think that the characters are all endearing. I enjoyed everything about this movie, which was something that like I didn't think that I wouldn't like. It's not like I sat there and I was like, oh, I'm gonna hate this. This is gonna suck or anything like that. It's just sometimes when I watch something, I'm like, I don't know how well it's going to live up to the hype. In so much as this movie has been hyped up to me to an unhealthy degree, because it has been considered by many to be one of the best anime movies ever made, and I've seen quite a few really good anime movies. I'm like, it's gonna be as good as Grave of the Fireflies, or Paprika, or what was the other one I saw that was really good, or like My Neighbor Totoro, or anything like that, where it's like these are all seminal works within the medium that it would be interesting to see if this can manage to live up to the insanely high expectation that has been set for this movie, and surprisingly it did, especially considering how far after the fact now I'm watching it. And what I was saying with The Last of Us, where it's like this idea of the government, taking as much power as it does, using as much power as it does, and like the whole thing about bombing an entire city just to try and get rid of some people who are a threat to them. It's and innocent people be damned. It's such a great microcosm to an extent of what you know kind of reality is. Where it's like the government will take those steps, as we've. It sounds like I'm getting off in conspiracy theory land now, so let's try and reel it back a little bit. Um, in The Last of Us, the government did that. Is what I mean to say. Not not reality government is going to Well, I mean, look, I'm going to say that, and then tomorrow it's going to happen. So let's just keep it all nice and on the up and up. But what else was there with this movie? I mean, the art's really great. They do a great job of just creating scenes of brutality where it's animated, but you still feel like you watch things happen, and it's like because the characters don't get like gummy or anything like that, you watch people wipe out on these bikes, and it's like, oh my god, that looks like it hurt a lot. Like, and to have that kind of resonance with animation is just so well done. Um, if you have not yet watched Akira, and I realize that I'm the one who's late to the boat on this, where I'm like, guys, I've discovered this thing. You've probably never heard of it before. Like I realize I'm the one who's late to the show on this, but it's something that's worth checking out. If you're watching the show and you haven't watched it yet, I like don't let the hype dissuade you. It's something that happens a lot for me, where it's like this idea that like, oh, it can't possibly live up to the expectations set before it. This does. to a absurd degree almost. But I think we'll wrap up there for today. I think we've covered enough with Akira and the upcoming Pokemon Direct. So let me look at our next few episodes. So our next episode, I think Josie's going to be on at least, if not Josie and Peter, is going to be Creed and Creed 2. Then we will be doing the original Scream from 1996. Then we'll be doing after that ranking the DCEU and an Oscars wrap-up show. Then we'll be doing all the John Wick movies up until this point. And then we'll be doing after that Garden State, which is Zach Braff's movie prior to A Good Person, which is coming out late next month. But until then, you can find all information about us and what we're doing at multipleworldproductions.com/calendar. And on there, you'll see everything cool we have planned and everything we're going to be doing over the next 2 months. Some dates are going to shift because Josie was on this week, so all the Exploring Hyperspace Lanes episodes are going to move a little bit. But beyond that, everything is all set up where it should be. So, until our next episode, which will be probably on Monday, about the Pokemon Presents, have a great rest of your week.